Let's keep the radio on. And thanks for listening local.
The mission of KAPF is to inform, empower, and engage our listening audience to take action that serves the immediate needs and the common good of our diverse community. We create a platform for diverse cultures and groups to share their music, interests, and concerns. We cover news and information that impacts directly on the lives of underrepresented members of the community. We provide a voice for groups and individuals often overlooked by the broader community. And we offer public affairs and education programs to address the health and well-being of the community. KABF, the voice of the people.
Throughout the history of the United States, the construct of racism was created specifically to oppress Black people, to try to suppress our determination to achieve liberation. Like Angela Davis said, it's built into the system. Nowadays I can't believe what's going on in front of me. I don't want to watch TV and find another casualty. I don't want to read the news. My heart's already black and blue. I'm putting on my combat boots, cause I got an attitude. Feel like soldiers forced to fight a war. What the hell? I can't take it anymore. Cause for so long we've been patient, now we're done. Don't you even see when did I become such an angry black woman? Tell me how long will we ride? Or will we hide? We're losing young ones, hands in the air. We keep praying for a miracle. Cause every day is a struggle. But as long as my brothers and my sisters are in trouble, goddamn, I'm a ABW. We can't successfully put into racial discrimination until we change the entire system. We've been trying to keep the peace. 50 years since what ain't key. Some don't like me for who I am, but I love my melody. I love a future college grad, sleeping in a private bag. Mother screaming out how long she wants to see her son. Feel like soldiers forced to fight a war. What the hell? I can't take it anymore. Cause for so long we've been patient, now we're done. And don't you even ask me when did I become such an angry black woman? Tell me how long will we ride? Or will we hide? 'Cause we're losing 'Cause for so long we've been patient, now we're done. So don't you even ask me when did I become such an angry black woman. Yes, that was Terry Ellis. Terry Ellis this morning, bringing us in live at KBF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people and have been for over 38 years, and we are proud about it. And we realize and we recognize that we would not be here if it were not for you, if it were not for the many ways that you contribute, like the contributions that we have already online. I see you, Hotel. I see you, Cindy, already showing up, ready for the conversation right here. We know that there are so many streaming platforms on which you could be listening to somebody else's voice, and you chose to be right here at KABF 88.3 FM, and for that we are grateful. We have an amazing conversation ready for you today. We want you to join in at 501-433-0088, 501-433-0088. I'm flying solo this morning. Tony announced on last week that he would not be here today. He is in Pine Bluff, and he is doing the work. He's doing the work for the people, making sure that those who are occupying workplace spaces, that they are able to have their voices heard in all of the ways that they need to get the conditions right to do the work that they need to do, that not only affects them in that space, but even beyond when they are home with their families or at play with us or at worship in whatever space they choose, even if they don't choose that space. But whenever they leave that place, we want to make sure that their bodies and their minds are intact. So we need to protect them on their jobs. And that is what he is doing. And I don't even think he'll be here Thursday, but don't let me speak too soon about that. But in his absence, we're going to keep it flowing. And we want you to know that you are welcome to be a part of this conversation. Again, the phone lines here are open at 501-433-0088. I want to make sure we get in several announcements before we get started with our conversation that is rooted in Terry Ellis singing Angry Black Woman. Terry Ellis is one of the founding members of En Vogue. They were founded in the year 1989, and that group, En Vogue, they wrote the song Free Your Mind. It's one of the ones that I've played before on the radio show. Hotep reminds me of that song all the time, Free Your Mind, and the rest will follow. So here Terry Ellis is talking about anger and how we can use that anger to affect change. And she's encouraging us to make sure that we don't forget that anger has a purpose and can serve a positive purpose in our lives. And she pushes back on this idea of people, of society saying that women should not be angry, and especially Black women. Anytime we make our voices known, anytime we are in a space and we stand up for ourselves, anytime we declare that this is what you're not going to do, then we are labeled as angry, and that's somehow a problem, and that's somehow something that is to be suppressed within us. So we're going to talk about anger as we continue to go through today's conversation. But first, let me make these announcements. I'm trying to make them in the order in which they are happening on our calendar. So March 30th, which is actually this Thursday, there's a ladies' power hour happening in North Little Rock at the Crush Wine Bar. Crush Wine Bar, and that is at 318 Main Street in North Little Rock. This is sponsored by Real Images. The entrepreneur, the creator of Real Images is Michelle Barnes, and she is inviting all of you who are ladies to join this power hour. It is a networking event so that we can get to know each other more and more on professional levels, personal levels, social levels, spiritual levels. We just want to make sure that you know that you have support in this area locally for all the work that you are doing to move us forward in business and beyond. So the Ladies Power Hour is happening at Crush Wine Bar on March 30th, which is this Thursday. So day after tomorrow, that is happening. And I want to keep going in order. And so on Friday, what is happening, it's just a spirit-led thing.
Please join us in a riveting and intimate discussion on religion and homosexuality. This is happening Friday, March 31st at 7 p.m. at the Wellness Center on 8615 Chico Road. That's at the Wellness Center at 8615 Chico Road. You are invited to a conversation about faith at the intersection of religion and homosexuality. If you are interested, please RSVP at 413-1835. So I'm assuming that's area code 501. So RSVP for that event at 413-1835. So that's happening on Friday. So Ladies Power Hour on this Thursday, and then you have the spirit-led thing, the conversation at the intersection of religion and homosexuality is happening on Friday. And then moving into April, because Saturday is April 1st. So not this Saturday, but the next Saturday is our Black Love 2 event. I am still grateful for those of you who showed up and packed the house at New Deal Gallery, 2003 Louisiana Street, right here in Little Rock, 72206. It was a full house as we had primarily the voices of women talking to us at the intersection of Black love and the system of white inhumanity. It's attack on Black love in all of its forms. And it was during that event that we realized without a shadow of a doubt, not only do we need to hear from the voices of Black women, we also need to hear from the voices of Black men. So we've got an outstanding lineup for you. We've got LaRon Mactivated McAdoo going to lead us out with a spoken word performance. And then we have the conversation with Marquis Hunt, your Mr. Mood on Mondays. We also have Daniel Collier. We've got the pastor, Tony Orr. We also have Keon Anderson and Kevin Holmes. They will be our conversationalists, and I will moderate the conversation, and it is worth your time. So that's happening at 7 o'clock on Saturday, April 8th, which is next Saturday. And you are welcome and you are invited to attend. You can pay what you can at the door. You don't have to worry about it. Just pay what you can at the door. If you don't have anything to pay, then that's what you pay, nothing. And you still walk in the door and you'll leave more than satisfied. Another event that's happening in April is on the 29th. We're having Pursuing Passion. It's a symposium on faith and HIV, at the intersection of faith and HIV. It's going to happen at the Sanctuary. I'm not sure if you all know about the Sanctuary, but it is a building that was designed by Mike Orndorff that's in Petaway, and it is located at 520 East 16th Street. He designed it as a space that the community can use for all kinds of reasons. This is not the first time that he has partnered with us to do the work. He also allowed us to use the building when we were having a retreat for Central Arkansas Pride. And now again, as we have faith leaders and faithful members of our community to come and gather in this space to talk about faith at the intersection of HIV, it will be held at 520 East 16th Street on Saturday, April 29th from 1 to 5 p.m. And that's going to be hosted by Just Talk Consulting. That's my own consulting firm, and that's where we will be on April 29th. And then on May the 6th, get ready. We are having a fundraiser for the KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. And it is called the People's Celebration Together We Rise. The People's Celebration Together We Rise. Mr. Marquis Hunt, your Mr. Mood on Mondays. It's his birthday on the 3rd. Mine is on the 2nd, his is on the 3rd. And in conjunction with his birthday, he is calling us all to this event where we are going to be raising money for KABF 88.3 FM. It's going to be held at St. Michael's Episcopal Church. It is outstanding. We are in the throes of organizing. We are super excited every time we gather to make sure that this is on point for each one of you. And we hope that you are already saving the date for May 6th. So you got a lot going on. And we want to make sure that you always know that there is something happening in your midst that needs your presence. You've got something happening Thursday. You've got something happening Friday. You've got something happening next Saturday. You've got something happening 2 Saturdays after that. And then you've got something happening the Saturday after that. So please, we will keep you posted on these events so that you will know how you can be present, how you can be engaged, and how you can be heard and respected in and seen in all of these spaces. We also want to make sure that we get in our tidbit from the Equal Justice Initiative. We do this every Tuesday. I try to stay on the Tuesday, but there are some times when I deviate from the calendar on purpose because I need for the conversation to flow. I want everything that we say to be rooted and grounded in a theme for the morning. We've got the song about anger from Terry Ellis. These tidbits can't help but stir up some anger within us because we are still seeing all of this kind of violence unfold right before us even now. And then the conversation today is about violence. And so I wanted to lift this up of what happened on actually Wednesday, the 29th. So this was what happened Wednesday, the 29th in 1964. On Wednesday, the 29th in 1964, a year after my brother Derek was born, Black and white worshipers are arrested for attending Easter services together at segregated churches in Jackson, Mississippi. On March 29th in 1964, Black and white worshipers are arrested for attending Easter services together at segregated churches in Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi is my hometown. Mississippi is one of the worst states historically for its reputation, for its truth, for its accurate representation of what it means to be evil and hateful in its lynching practices. And that is my home where I was born and reared. And Easter is coming up. So for those of you who celebrate Easter, there are people among us who do. It's happening on the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. April 6th, isn't that Easter? Yeah, it's coming up very soon. And so to think about this in this moment where there are Black and white people who have said that we understand that this struggle involves us all. We understand that violence impacts us all. We understand that if I am not free as a Black person, you are not free as a white person. And when they chose to come together, there's still this system of white inhumanity that says, how dare you unify? How dare you align yourselves? How dare you stand in solidarity? We won't allow it, not even in church, not even in the name of God, not even empowered by the Holy Spirit that we claim is present among us when we call ourselves Christians, some of us. And so I wanted to talk about that and to root us in, again, this conversation about anger that is prompted by the song Terry Ellis writes in the words in her song, Angry Black Woman. In the link for today, I included, in the description for today, I included a link to both Terry Ellis's song and the book that I'm probably I intend to reference it, but we just flow. So I'm not sure how things, it doesn't always work the way that I plan. The conversations don't always unfold the way that I have them intended in my mind. And so it's my plan to talk about this book. So you want to talk about Race by Ijoma Oluwo. And I put the link to Pyramid Art, Books, and Custom Framing. It is where you can go to order the book if you are interested in reading it. And I sent you, and the link is also there for you if you want to watch the interview with Terry Ellis as she talks about this song, Angry Black Woman, that actually she wrote 4 years before it was released, and to continue to talk about, people ask me, why do I do these tidbits? Because even 4 years after she wrote the song, the words are still relevant and meaningful as if she wrote them yesterday. And so when we talk about the tidbits from the Equal Justice Initiative, the words are relevant even though it's 1964. So that was 58 years ago? Because my brother's 59. So maybe 60 years ago. Don't let me start doing math. So we want to make sure that we are reminded that the struggle continues, that we have not gotten to the place of collective liberation, and it's going to take all of us. And so I was thinking about that. And what would it take for us to realize that this is not just a conversation for Black folks? When we talk about collective liberation, when we talk about reparations, when we talk about environmental justice, when we talk about food apartheid, when we talk about the housing crisis, when we talk about people who are unsheltered in our midst, all of these issues affect not just Black folks. And what the world has done is they've made these issues that are that have a Black face on them. And so because we put a Black face on them, it's easy for us to dismiss them. Because since I dismiss Black people so easily, I can dismiss their issues. But when are we going to realize that these issues that affect Black people, they only affect us disproportionately? It's not that they only affect us, they just affect us in disproportionate ways from the other communities in our midst, including white folks. And so when Terry Ellis talks about anger, and when we begin to think about anger as a universal emotion, when we think about anger as something that we need, oh my goodness, Charles, I'm so glad that you showed up. Sawubona, yes. Sawubona, the spirit of oneness, absolutely is part of this conversation when we realize that Sawubona is an invitation for us to see each other in the fullness of who we are and all of who we bring with us. So every member of our ancestry, we bring them with us into every space in which we walk. And so we have to reckon with that, with our bodies, for what our ancestors have been responsible for, whoever they are. And so in the spirit of oneness, we've got to have these conversations. But what I need to tell you that I forgot to mention is that Charles is in trouble. I talk a lot about Kids Infant Gear School in Kampala, Uganda, because Liberated Connections, which is the 501c3 that I created for domestic and international work along the lines of equity. We've been in relationship now, I guess, for a year. Has it been a year, Charles? A year? Over a year? I can't really remember. But we have built a well for them. We have built desks for them. Monthly, we send refunds. We send resources. We send funds so that they can have rice and beans and sanitary napkins for the 183 orphans that they serve at that school. And Charles came out as LGBTQ plus in 2014. And now Uganda has declared that anyone who is LGBTQ, if you identify in that way, then it is against the law. It's against the law for you to identify as LGBTQ, and your sentence is life imprisonment. And they have already charged Charles with what they've done is they've sent a letter and they've put him on notice to say, hey, we believe that you are LGBTQ. We believe that teachers in your school are LGBTQ. We do not believe that you should have you be in this capacity where you are teaching and educating children. So we are coming for you. We're coming for you. We're coming for the teachers. We're coming for the school. And so he's going to have to defend himself in court against these accusations that he is teaching children what it means to be LGBTQ, rather than what is really happening in the church. Really happening in the school is that students are being taught academically. Students are being taught what it means to live in community. Students are being taught what it means to be cared for. Because here's what's got me so angry about this is when they wrote the letter to him, and I have the letter. When they wrote the letter to him, they did not say, hey, we want you to shut down your school, but we will make provisions for the students. They did not say, we will make sure that they are fed. They did not say, we will make sure that they are housed. They did not say that we will make sure that they have access to sanitary napkins during the period of, during their menstruation. They did not say any of those things. What they said is, we want to shut you down because we don't believe in who you are, and we don't want you to have anything to do with the children. It doesn't matter to us that the children will now be in the streets and be unsheltered and to go hungry and to live impoverished lives. We don't care about any of that. All we want you to know is that we don't appreciate the fact that you dare say that you are LGBTQ, that you are a gay man in Africa. We would rather see you imprisoned and them on the street. And so we are working, strategizing right now to figure out how we are going to counter the suit. We already have some ideas. We already have an attorney willing to help us with the case. If you are interested in joining us in this fight, or if you are interested in any more information about anything that we talk about, my number is area code 228-236-7440. That is a Mississippi number because I am from Jackson, but that's a Gulf Coast number. 228-236-7440. The fight that we have against anti-Blackness, against anti same gender loving, against anti-trans, against anti-disability, against people who are just anti-existence for some humans. The fight continues for all of us, not just here, but also abroad. So I wanted to make sure that I made that announcement. I'm so glad that you reminded me, Charles, by showing up in the space. Sawubona, Yebo, Sawubona to you this morning. If you show up on Tuesday nights when I am hosting a Bible study at the intersection of faith and social justice, I say to you every Tuesday night, I do greet you in the spirit of oneness through the Sawubona. And I also say that there are ways that you can engage. And one of the ways that you can engage is to walk through a door. And I explain that what that means is we are talking in this moment. We've got 1 hour from 7 to 8 where we show up in this space and we have conversation. But the hope is that the conversation that we have from 7 to 8 is just an amuse bouche. It just whets your appetite to get you ready for more conversations to come. And so I talk about how important it is, or how encouraging it is for us to continue to think about the conversation beyond the 1 hour space that we designate for it. And then if there are things that you learn after the conversation, you see a TikTok, you read an article, you listen to a podcast, you watch a documentary, and you want to share that information with me, then if you share it with me, I will engage it. I will watch it. I will read it. I will comment. We will have conversation. We will continue to talk even beyond that moment that we had together for what is called the good fight. That's the title of our time together on Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. live on Facebook and YouTube. And so so it was a result of having walked through a door with a friend of mine. We were texting, and she invited me, Morgan invited me to watch a documentary called Our Father. And in this documentary, there is a doctor named Dr. Donald Klein, who is a doctor of obstetrics and gynecology. We usually shorten the name and say he's an OBGYN. So those of us who some of us have to we need healthcare services from people who specialize in this area, especially if you are a person who is going to have a baby, especially if you are a person who has a vagina. There are, especially those, but there are so many other reasons why you would need a doctor, an OBGYN, a doctor of obstetrics and gynecology. And so in this case, in this documentary, the women who show up for services in Dr. Klein's office are experiencing infertility, and they and their spouse, their husband, for this documentary, I think it was usually all of them were husbands. I didn't focus too much on the type of relationship that all of them had, but most of them were in heterosexual relationships where their husbands, the women's husbands, wanted to have a baby. And for some reason, whether it was something happening in the woman's body, something happening in the man's body, regardless, they were unable to produce a child. And so this doctor, Dr. Donald Klein, was new and fresh on the scene, doing innovative work in this area of in vitro fertilization. And so he would take live sperm from a donor and he would insert it into the woman's body in order for her to conceive a child. And he would basically, at bottomline.com, he would give them what it is that they were asking for, what they wanted, what they so desperately felt like they needed in their lives, and that was a child. And so these women would go to him, and many of them would go with their husband's sperm right there live with them, because the husband would donate in the space so that they could have a children that was fathered by their husband and that was mothered by them, and they would then raise a family in the way that they wanted to. That happened most of the time where it was a couple wanting this to happen. And what we come to find out through this documentary is that Dr. Donald Klein made the decision himself that he would not use the sperm of the women's husbands to inseminate them. Instead, he would use his own sperm. So he would go to one of the offices in the clinic, and he would masturbate to provide the sample because it needed to be warm, it needed to be fresh, and then he would walk it into the space with the client, with the patient, and he would then insert his semen in her vagina, and he would give her the child that she and her husband so desperately wanted. And through this documentary, we find out that Dr. Klein has fathered so far 94 children. They're still counting, but at the end of the documentary, they were able to track, they were able to use his DNA to determine that there are 94 children in this world that were impregnated by him through his own hands with his own sperm into the bodies without consent of these women. So that's what the documentary is about. And during this documentary, the very first child that we come into contact with, her name is Jacoba. She is so angry when she finds this out. When she finds out that not only had her mother's body been violated, right? Not only had this doctor lied and betrayed them, not only had he done this, rape, like the word rape was used, the word sexual assault was used, sexual battery was used, like all of these words to try to communicate how much harm this caused for her and her siblings. So she begins to do her own trace of herself, her own DNA. And then that's how she begins to learn about her sisters and brothers, her siblings, because most of them showed up on Ancestry. What is it? You and me in 23. Me, you, and 23, whatever those, now we can do these test kits where you can trace your DNA. And that's how many of them came to know that they were siblings. And in this documentary, you're watching it on TV, but you could feel through the screen her anger and her rage. How dare this man? How dare he do this to our families? How dare he perpetrate this fraud? How dare he commit this crime against bodies? How dare he create this life for me where I am now having this crisis of identity? I don't know who I am. I've got brothers and sisters living so close to me that I don't even know. I've got brothers and sisters whose children, my children and their children, we find out have been sharing space together. It is possible that we've even dated each other because we had no clue of the harm and the trauma that this man has caused our lives. And she's so mad. She's cussing. She's angry. You can feel it through the screen how angry she is. And she wants him to suffer. She wants him to be held accountable. They take him to court. They want him to be jailed. They want him to serve time. They want him to lose his license. They want all kinds of things to happen to him because they are not just angry, but they are enraged, because there is a difference between anger and rage. So anger is an emotion that all of us carry. It's an emotion that's actually a secondary emotion. There's an emotion, there's a primary emotion, there's an emotion that we experience first that leads to anger. So sometimes we are scared. Sometimes we experience some kind of loss. And so those primary feelings lead us to react with anger. Rage is when we want to do something about it. Rage is when we actually put feet and hands to our anger. So these are two different things. And so she moves from anger to rage during the documentary. She's like, I want something to happen to him. So she calls up all the news shows. She has a conversation with the district attorney. She's writing letters. She's meeting with the doctor. She's meeting with his family. She's meeting with his children, his own, well, they're all his biological children, but the four that he has, he's got four with his wife, but two of them are on the documentary. She wants to talk. I want everybody to know. I want the world to know. I'm going to expose you for what you've done. I'm so angry. How dare you? When I think about the history of who I am, when I trace my ancestry and I find that you are present in my lineage, it angers me. It bothers me because of your behavior. And I began to think as I was watching this documentary, I get it, Jacoba. That's her name. I get it. I'm holding you in that space. I can't even imagine what that feels like. And I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about white people who trace their ancestry back to learn that you are of Irish descent. You trace your ancestry and you learn that your family was from Italy. You're Italian. You trace your ancestry back and you learn about that there are Greek people. Like you're able to say where your people came from. You're able to give your pedigree, your biological pedigree. Right? You are able to share that with us, and you're proud about it. And so a lot of times when I'm watching these cooking shows, like I want to showcase my heritage. So I want to cook Italian food. I want to showcase my heritage. So I want to stick to my classical French techniques. And so all of this, you trace yourself back and you find this pride in your heritage. I began to wonder, why is it that you won't go all the way back to trace your ancestry and find those members of your family whose blood still runs warm in your veins now because you can't erase blood? How come you don't trace all the way back and find out that you have members of your family who enslaved humans, who sold children, who raped and slaughtered and demonized and dehumanized and degraded and desecrated the bodies of humans? Why won't you trace that? And why won't you have the same response? Why are you not angry about that? So angry that you say, I want to do something about it. This Jacoba is like, I don't know, 30 something. So this happened 30 years ago. And you find out today, and in your enlightenment, now that you know more, now that you understand better, you want something to happen. You want something to change. You want somebody to pay. Why don't you, as white folks, feel that way about your ancestors as it relates to the system of enslavement? Why aren't you so angry when you finally learn? Because I can see how it's possible that you didn't know that this was withheld from you. I can see how your family wouldn't want you to know that they played this very integral, intimate, tangible role in the system of enslavement. I can see how they wouldn't want you to know how they benefit, even if it wasn't their generation, but that actually had hands on, but they benefited from the generation before. I can see how they wouldn't want you to know that. So I can see how that information has been suppressed and continues to be hush hush and secretive in your family. I can see that. Why? Because that's what they do with our history. So surely they're doing it with your history too. There's nothing happening to Black folks that isn't happening to white folks and people of color, to all of us. And so when I was looking at, she was so mad, y'all. So why won't we, when we think about this conversation from the Equal Justice Initiative that says it was Black and white folks who were trying to go to church together, who were trying to say, we get it. We've gotten to the point now where we have more information and we understand that we need to align ourselves with each other and we need to come together and we need to solidify this union of of a race. We need to realize that we're all just one human. Like all of us in the spirit of Sawubona, we are one. Ain't no black folks, ain't no white folks. That's a construct. We get it. So here we are coming to worship together as a step. Here is us expressing our rage. We are raging against the machine that says that we must be segregated. No, we are going to do something about it. We're going to show up at church together, even if we get arrested. The black and the white folks realize the struggle belongs to both of them. What if we did that when we talk about your history, white people, your ancestry, your line, trace your blood, and not just get mad about it, not just get angry about it, get enraged about it. And so that's what the topic for today is listed on the flyer. Those of you who see it on Facebook, it says, you ain't mad yet? What is it that's going to take us? What is it that's going to take you to get so as mad as you are? Rightfully so. I'm not arguing whether or not you have a right. She has a right to be mad about what this man did to her and her family. I'm not arguing that at all. That ain't even my conversation. But as mad as you get about what it is that you see this person did in his past, why don't we get that upset about our ancestry when we think about people who were enslaved? Why aren't you just as so mad that even now, hundreds of years later, you say, I want you to be held accountable. I want the family to be held accountable. I want something to happen. I want somebody to go to jail. I want reparations, whatever that looks like, however it manifests, however the accountability manifests itself. Because I can see somebody arguing, how you going to put me in jail for some of my ancestors did? Okay, maybe not jail, but there is a way that we can be held accountable. So when we start talking about reparations, we ain't even got to go all the way to reparations. When we just start talking about education, we are living in a world right now that is so busy trying to protect their ancestors. So busy trying to, no, I don't think you're trying to protect your ancestors. You're trying to protect what you believe to be your power that was given to you through your ancestry that is rooted and grounded in racism. Right? So you're trying to protect your own benefits. You're trying to protect your status. You're trying to protect your identity. And when we push, and as we continue to push for the education that needs to happen across the world, all people, Black people, white people, people of color here in the States and beyond, when we talk about how all of us need to be educated on the truth of who we are, then as we push for that, then you are experiencing an identity crisis, just like Jacoba did, because who you thought you were, who you were told you were, how you grew up thinking you were somebody, finding out that you are not. That's hard, but it's necessary. Caller.
Good morning, Denise.
Can you hear me?
The ancestry thing, I looked back a lot and found out there's Black people that are enslaved. And, Obama wasn't the first Black president. 13 colonies and all that stuff, the history goes way back. They didn't teach us a whole lot of things. So if reparations come into play, there's going to be some Black people that are really mad because they're going to have to pay reparations. Our country hides our history, and we are so uneducated that we argue amongst ourselves because we don't know our history. And then we get mad when we find out something we don't like about our history. Blackness is not, a cure for everything, and some people not. And there's white people that say we can't be smart. There's Black people that say we can't be smart. We fight amongst ourselves because we don't know our history. And it's sad. It's really sad. We need to repeat that. The white people need to feel that we put on our own minds to fight against them. And it's basically like they're not teaching us what we need to know. Because we can't handle the truth. And then, when we give Black people a lot of money, what happens? They change. We have no sense of doing anything with money. I love you guys.
This happens all the time. It happens all the time. I think I tried to make it very clear when I talked about the woman king I watched that movie when I came on the flight back from Minnesota I want to say that was in January. And The Woman King, the whole premise of the movie is that Viola Davis's character raises up against the practices of her own people that allow for the enslavement of their own people. And she raises up to say, there is a way that we can keep our power. There is a way that we can sustain ourselves. There is a way that we can remain independent without enslaving our own people. And so I was willing to have that conversation on this 100,000 watt platform, on this global platform, because we've got people listening from 20 countries in this world to this station right now. And we know that people are hearing us all throughout the world. And I was willing to say that yes, Black people have been complicit in the system of enslavement. I'm not trying to pretend that we aren't, because I, unlike many of you, especially white folks, have no problem with the truth. I have no problem having the conversation. I have no problem thinking about and finding the ways in which I have been and continue to be complicit so that I can do a work in myself as I push you to do your own work. I've got no problem with that conversation. But I do have a problem when we begin to equate the two, when we begin to talk about Black people's enslavement of Black people the same way that we talk about white people's enslavement of Black people, because it is not the same thing. We did not design this system of enslavement. We figured out a way, just like we do right now. We figured out a way to capitalize on it, yes, and we need to be held accountable for that, yes, but I will not allow for a conversation that's like, oh no, you are just as guilty. No, I am not. There's a different level of accountability, which is why we talk about we need to make sure that the time fits the crime. You know how we say things like that, we can't have this conversation saying, oh no, I'm gonna lump Black people into this, all in the same, but we all in the same bucket for what we did for the system of enslavement. No, that is not true. And I don't allow for it. I'm gonna push back on it every time. And I wish we would stop saying it. Okay, caller, I'm coming.
Yes, he's up, this brother Sawubona. Now, sometimes we know that emotions is a valuable tool. But when it comes to anger on a platform like this, we have to really be careful, because a lot of people don't know about the laws of attraction. And our thoughts determine, it's a frequency. And sometimes that frequency, if you have ever studied metaphysical or metaphysics, it really just hurts ourselves. A lot of cancers and back pains and everything else comes from our thought patterns. And when we don't know how to use it as a tool for sometimes for them to back off, anger can be a tool for people to back off in a sense. But when we have that anger and use it, sometimes, like I say, it's like a disease, it's disease. And at the same time, we have to know how to be able to shift. Now, that's what I'm trying to do now, shift the thought about anger into a better way of thinking. Because a lot of times, like I say, anger being a frequency, we are immediately drawn to the laws of attraction. I mean, thinking that we're going to attract other situations like what we're talking about, we have to sometimes dismiss and be able to heal our thought patterns instead of lingering and holding on to anger. I mean, I know you bounced the ball quite a few different conversations or different ideas of what you was trying to say, but I would like for us to think on more pleasant ideas or better ways, because like I say, emotions especially the emotion of anger, is so powerful. And we don't want to leave listeners with that kind of like, yeah, I should get angry. No, you should really think about more pleasant or lift your frequency up. I'm trying to say this not to bash what you're trying to say, but at the same time, and as those times we have to really be careful to shift our ideas on more pleasant things. Like say the laws of attraction, we can attract better. In other words, peace and love to all. I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
Oh, absolutely. I get what you're trying to say, Solar Beam, and I disagree with you 100%. So here's the problem. And I think that Solar Beam articulated the problem so very well. Our problem is that we don't understand the emotion of anger. Because anger is an emotion, it is universal. So all of us have it. So we are supposed to have, we are designed, we were created to experience it. And anger is a secondary emotion, which means that it is triggered by something else. So we do not want to suppress. I want you to get angry. If you feel anger in your body, I want you to pay attention to it. I need you to pay attention to it because it is a signal that something else is going on. And what happens to us, especially as Black people, and we've been taught to do it, and we've been taught to do it at the churches. No. What is that verse from scripture? Oh my goodness. Philippians 4:13. We talk about whatever is good. I know I got some scripture quotas out there. Whatever is good, whatever is kind, whatever is lovely, whatever is this, and this. This is what Paul says. Think on these things. And so we want to suppress that anger. We want to tell you that your anger is unchristian. We want to tell you that it makes you bad. We want to give you a bad reputation if you are an angry Black person. But no, I want you to experience the anger. Do not tell people to stop to not experience their anger. So yes, if my vibrations are giving you permission to be angry, I want you to be, because the anger is a signal. It is saying to you, something triggered this. And we need to begin to think about what that is. What causes you right now to be angry? What is it that's happening? What has happened? Were you disrespected? Were you dehumanized? Were you treated unjustly? What happened? Where are you experiencing microaggressions? What's happening to cause this emotion to bubble up inside you? And when you embrace that emotion that you have every right to experience, then you can say, okay, this is an indicator. This is a signal. This is a symptom. Let me pay attention to what else is happening. That is why I need you to be angry. What you're talking about, Solar Beam, is rage, because anger can lead to rage. It can lead to behavior that is toxic. It can lead to behavior that causes trauma. It can lead to behavior that is unproductive. It can lead to behavior that is destructive. That's what you're talking about. And I'm not asking you to be enraged. I'm asking you to get mad. Especially white people. I want you to get mad so that you can see that your anger is a symptom of what has happened in your own lineage. And I want you to get so mad about it that you trace it to find out, to be able to name it, to be able to recognize it, so you can say, now what are we going to do about it? How are we going to align ourselves in the struggle to do something about all of this that has happened in our blood? So that we can now fight for collective liberation, so that our rage shows up as reparations, so that our rage shows up as adequate housing, our rage shows up as adequate education, our rage shows up as universal health care. That's what I'm asking you to do. I'm very clear on this conversation about anger, and I want you to embrace it. Caller, you're live on the air at KBF 88 point. Oh, sure.
And to your listening audience, those on the web, I just want to say that two wrongs don't make a right. What goes around comes around. Talking about blood, there are some folks on the planet that have a Neanderthal gene of bloodline, and there are some on the planet that do not. You can agree to disagree in more ways than one. Feelings, thoughts, and emotions are actually better viewed if they're contained or not are not used to maybe express, like you got a chip on your shoulder when you say you're pushing back. And that may be taken in a way that it's not going to produce a good outcome. Like they say, you can use honey to attract a bear, and that's better than using a stick if you're trying to attract that bear. And when you push back sometimes, it gives the impression that you're not trying to unite, which is what we're all trying to do, is come together in harmony. So hopefully you won't be, offended, in other words, to the point where you push back when someone mentions the slavery aspect, because it's not necessary that we go all the way through history. The Egyptians enslaved folks, and I think Egypt is on the Nile River, so we know those are Africans. We enslaved other Africans or people in the regions, or Semites enslaving other Semites. And, we come to the point now where we don't even know what these words mean. And I just hope that we all come together in the banner of unity to express ourselves, and that way we probably accomplish just a little bit more. And I hope you agree with that. Thanks.
Well, to get this statement in I've got 3 comments from Facebook that I have not mentioned because I've been talking and we've been listening to the callers. Cindy says, Atticus Finch quote from To Kill a Mockingbird: "Before I can live with other folks, I've got to live with myself. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience." I want to read that again. Atticus Finch, this is a quote from To Kill a Mockingbird. "Before I can live with other folks, I've got to live with myself. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience." Earlier, we had this one from Lowe. It came in after the caller talked about Black people enslaving Black people. And then this would also speak to, I think, what Matt just talked about. There's indentured servitude versus chattel slavery. And then another comment that Lowe made that I overlooked, I didn't give space for until now, is when I was talking about us thinking about the system of enslavement, and if we trace the line of it, we would have to put past presidents on trial as well, because to hold them accountable for their actions to enslave humans. I was just looking up Hatchet Hall the other day because I'm getting ready to begin organizing another People's Supper, and Hatchet Hall in California is a restaurant that has modernized the techniques that were used by the chef that Thomas Jefferson had in his home, who was enslaved. And so, yeah, we would have to talk about presidents. I want to say that I don't think that I understand you all's definition of conversation, right? Of dialogue. I am not one who, if I'm inviting you into conversation, which I do every Tuesday, phone lines are open at 501-433-0088. Call in, make your voice known. We want to hear from you. To me, a conversation doesn't mean that you get to say whatever you want to say, and the person says, okay, you say what you want to say. I'm not going to say anything about it. I don't have any thoughts about it. Unless my thoughts are the same as yours, I'm not going to express them because I don't want you to feel some kind of way. Like that's not who I am. And so if I invite you in a conversation and you have a thought and you have an idea about it, I feel and I believe, and I will continue to operate this way, that the space that's created allows for me to disagree with what you say. And so I can hear somebody saying, well, it's not that you disagree, it's how you disagree. So it's, you don't like the language pushback, like we can use other language. Like I don't want to get caught up on 2 words. If you don't like for me to say pushback, that's fine. But that's not my concern. My concern is this idea that people think you can just say whatever you want to say, and then people are supposed to accept it. And we don't make room for the disagreement unless we agree with the disagreement. Unless I feel good about what you're saying, I don't want you to say it. And I'm not in the business of comforting people with conversation. The conversation to me is supposed to help us think. It's supposed to push us, and I do mean push. It's supposed to, maybe I should say challenge. It's to challenge us to think differently. It's to challenge us to consider a new idea. It's to challenge us to give space for somebody else's perspective. Even because I have said myself, oh, I received that. I got that. I've come back and said, well, I was wrong, or this happened. Like, I don't mind that. And so that's what and I don't see how, if we don't agree, and if we don't agree on tone, because I said to the white man the last time, you don't get to police my tone. Like, nobody does. And so if we can't lift ourselves up out of that, when you talk about emotions, if you can't lift yourself out of emotion that says, oh, well, I don't like the way, I don't like your voice. Okay, but is that more important than what I'm saying? That you need to be comfortable in the conversation so I can say the things that tickle your ears. And so I'm just wondering about that, because I'm not a ear tickler, but I do believe that I'm creating a space for us to be heard. I do believe I'm creating a space for you to call in and say what you have to say, but that doesn't mean that somebody else won't have something different to say about what you just said. And so I just wanted to put that out there as a reminder that for me, it's the art of the conversation, which is a give and take. It's a push and pull. It's an agree and disagree. It's a back and forth. And that, I think, is beautiful, because when we stop later and reflect upon it, I hope that there's something that you can pull from it if you give yourself over to it. Thank you so much for joining us for Community Voices. We have been live right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. Your girl Lola already in the house getting ready. You got me getting ready. I see you getting ready now. I'm getting ready. And I hope you all are getting ready too for these next 2 hours of jazz that will change your life, will speak to you in ways that my words cannot. And that's why we have all of these different DJs playing all of these different roles to meet you where you are and to feed your soul, to feed your mind, to feed your body. We'll see you on Thursday for the workplace at 9 a.m.